Hello, everybody. This is Chris Miller from the Coach's Box Call Like We See It podcast as we are representing Thank God for Football Game Day as we preview the SEC this week. And last week's SEC matchups, they were great, but I'll tell you what's even greater than that. Hey, listen, I've been waiting for this my entire life. This segment is sponsored by the good folks over at Pepsi. One of my favorite things to drink is Pepsi. And gosh, I am so excited that I get to say this, but nothing beats an ice cold Pepsi. So if you're tailgating or you're with your family at a sports event, hey, drink an ice cold Pepsi, the official sponsor of Greenville Sports Media. And again, some great matchups in the SEC last week. It took a little, we're taking it a little down a little notch this week, coming off of that great Texas Ohio State game that we had. And I think it lived up to the billing last week. Obviously, with Ohio State coming out on top this week, we're kind of falling back to earth a little bit on our matchups. We've got a lot of blowouts that are probably going to happen as the SEC powerhouse schools are taking on that week non-conference schedule. We do have Ole Miss at Kentucky. That could be a good game. But I'm not really thinking it's going to be, like some must watch TV, even though Ole Miss is ranked 20th right now. You've got Arizona State at Mississippi State. That's given 6.5. That's not really a big matchup. So here's our matchups to really watch. And the first one's going to be kind of like, oh, really? Again, not the best matchups this week in the SEC. We've got Vanderbilt at Virginia Tech. It's going to be interesting to see how these teams play. We've got, again, we got an SEC and an ACC playing against each other. Vanderbilt's coming in 1-0. Virginia Tech, they're coming off of a loss, 0-1. It's a short week. It's a short week game, so it could be very interesting how it plays out. It's Virginia Tech is the favorite, though, in the betting, 63% on all the models. So, it's a tough place to play Virginia Tech, especially with their best pregame entrance of their teams. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, go watch it on YouTube. Probably the best matchup by rankings wise would be Oklahoma and Michigan. And these two teams both coming in undefeated. It is probably the best matchup. And it's Michigan is going to travel to Oklahoma. And again, you're not thinking like, oh, Oklahoma. It's not a traditional SEC powerhouse or team for that matter. But it is again, it's one of those rare early season big matchups. Bryce Underwood for Michigan, we're going to see if he's the real deal here. Obviously, he had a good showing in his first game, but how's it going to be? Oklahoma playing in Norman's, and there's a lot of pressure going on there, to come in there and play. Michigan has had a lot of eyes on him here lately. So again, it's kind of one of those things. It could go either way. I mean, I really don't want to, to place any kind of heavy bet, but OU's getting 5.5 here. And all the betting models are favoring Oklahoma, not by a lot, but they're there. So again, should be a good matchup to watch. For me, and I would have to say the best matchup is going to be Kansas and Mizzou. And Mizzou's coming in and there's, I personally feel like they could have been in the top 25. They didn't. They're not, but this is going to be played at Memorial Stadium at Faurot Field. It is going to be the first matchup since 2011 when the last time the border war was played. And guys, I'm telling you right now, you want to talk about some bad blood. us here in Missouri pretty much hate Kansas. There are a few of those people out there that are KU fans. They hide this time of year. Mizzou won the last matchup in the border war. I'm so glad that after 14 years, we're going to get to see it again. I'm pumped about it. I think it's going to be a hell of a matchup. And I mean, Mizzou's favored, not by a lot. It's 6.5, but it could be one of those games that is going to be a fun one to watch. I personally hope it's a blowout, but for me and for all of us here at the Coach's Box, we are looking forward to this game. So that's our week 2. I'm trying to get ahead of myself. Week 2 preview with thank God for Friday game day. I'm Chris Miller of the Coach's Box Call Like See It podcast. Thank you guys, and we'll see you all again next week for some more matchups.
Hi everybody, this is Jay with your Sitting Pretty Dog Grooming Underdog Pick of the Week. Give me Rice. That's right, Rice over Houston in the game this week. Houston travels to Rice, and Rice right now is an underdog of 13.5. I think that's way too much. Give me Rice as the underdog pick of the week. Thank you for Sitting Pretty Dog Grooming. Everything you do for us. Make sure you give Felicia and Emma a call. Sitting Pretty Dog Grooming. You can see the link on Greenville Sports Media.
Thank God for football. I'm Cuthbert from SSN Army, and with week 2 upon us, let's dive into the American Conference slate. What we saw in week 1, what we can expect this week. Before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to our sponsor, the Clemson Wine Bar, a neighborhood social eatery and gathering place to experience great wine and great food. Look them up if you are in Clemson, South Carolina. They got bites and pours. They can do special events. Really a fantastic establishment. Now let's go ahead and jump in and talk about what we saw in week 1 from the American, because there were some big headlines. Starting first and foremost with the University of South Florida's complete dismantling of the Boise State Broncos, 34-7 at Ray J. The fact that they won is not the biggest shock here. The biggest shock is the way in which they did it. They controlled the ball, they controlled the game basically from start to finish. Bynum Brown, when healthy and able to be prepped for a game, he is dangerous. Alex Golish, he very well may be moving on up to a very powerful position at a P4 school if he can continue to have dominating performances like this. I early on said I didn't think that Boise State was going to be quite as good this year as they were last year. They were maybe a little bit overvalued, but also I may myself have been undervaluing USF, an absolutely dominant performance. So typically the cap to them. The next big result from week 1, my Army Black Knights upset by Tarleton State Texans. Now, Tarleton State is by no means a pushover FCS foe. They're currently ranked number 3 in the FCS. They are knocking on the door of joining the FBS, likely in Conference USA. They are a team, I've said it on Twitter, I've said it on podcasts, I'll say it again, I think they could beat at least the bottom half of the G5s in the country and probably a couple of P4 bottom feeders. They are a legit team. Now, I say that not to take anything, not to take any responsibility away from my Black Knights, who quite frankly did not play the game they should have. We had a little bit of a mess in the offensive line that created downstream effects, in particular things like being forced to pass in the red zone, making bad decisions when passing in the red zone turnovers, missed field goals, things that, to the credit of Tarleton State, if they weren't able to disrupt Army's game, wouldn't have been possible. But, unfortunately, not everyone can be dignified in victory. In the words of Silky Johnson to the players of Tarleton State, I hope everything bad in the world happens to you and only to you. And if you've been on Twitter and you've been seeing some of the videos that are getting uploaded, you understand what I'm saying. All that to say, they deserve the W. They got the W. I just wish they'd had a little bit more class about them. Elsewhere in the American Conference, Tulane smokes an anemic Northwestern 23-3. Jake Retzlaff appears to be folding into John Summerall's offense beautifully. That is going to be trouble for the rest of the American Conference this year. Temple is alive. Now, granted, they beat UMass, and UMass is barely an FBS team, if you can call them that. But Temple beat them 42-10. And if you're playing a bottom feeder, you should be beating them 42-10. So, listen, great start for new head coach Casey Keeler. I'm not thinking that Temple is going to be a world beater this year, but this is definitely the best start. And speaking of teams not expected to be world beaters who, turned some heads in week one, Rice beats Louisiana 14-12. Former Davidson head coach Abel, he comes in, he somehow brings Rice to this upset victory. I think we may potentially be seeing a shift here in the American Conference where some of those teams who are at the bottom begin to move their way up. I spoke last week about all the new head coaches and all of that. This conference probably had the best hirings for head coaches across the board. We could be seeing that here in the next couple weeks. Some of these teams that were really, really low at the bottom working their way up. Elsewhere around the league, East Carolina, close loss to hated rival NC State. They started very slow. The game was well out of hand by halftime, at least from the looks of it. ECU, valiant comeback. Were not able to bring it all the way. They did end up losing. So not terrible for them. It doesn't look like they are really off base as a team with some of the preseason projections, but that was definitely a very, very slow start. University of Alabama, Birmingham, the Fighting Trump Dilfers, they were able to beat Alcorn State. They did have to come from behind to do it. I know at least midway through the third quarter, when I was making my video for Thank God for Football last week, they were losing. It was very unclear what we thought was going to happen. They were able to pull it out, but not great news from UAB that you're having to claw your way back to victory against Alcorn State late in the third quarter. Appalachian State beat Charlotte, beat them soundly. This game was played at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. That's the NFL stadium that the Charlotte Panthers play in. I will say, I think if this game is played at the Jerry on campus at University of North Carolina, Charlotte, I think it's a much closer game. And this week, UNC, the hapless Tar Heels, poor old Bill Belichick, who just got dog-walked by TCU last week, they are coming into Charlotte. And, with Tim Albin, who's the new head coach from Ohio University, I understand that he's 0-1 now at Charlotte, but he is a fantastic head coach. UNC, who knows what is going on in that program right now, the way they were just embarrassed on national television. Maybe Charlotte steals a win this week. UTSA drops a tough one to Texas A&M. I had said that one was probably going to be a toss-up for UTSA, even to be competitive. They weren't particularly competitive. FAU trounced by Maryland. That was tough. We're expecting this year that FAU have a strong offense and negligible defense, but it didn't look like they had anything against the Terrapins last weekend. Navy smokes FCS bottom feeder Virginia Military Institute. I love the Virginia Military Institute. I'm originally from Virginia. They are not good at football. They have not been good at football for a long time. There are a lot of Navy fans popping their collars about how they beat VMI and Army lost to Tarleton State. All I can tell you is Tarleton State would beat VMI twice on Saturday and again on Sunday. These things are not the same. I am not impressed by y'all beating the Keydets, despite the place I keep them in my heart. Memphis, University of North Texas, Tulsa, they all won just as they should have against their FCS foes. That wraps up week one. Now let's look at week two. Our game of the week this week, USF, the South Florida Bulls, travel to the Swamp to ranked number 13, the University of Florida. This is a huge game. Now, USF is receiving votes in both the AP and the coaches poll. They are going to Florida. I honestly think this game might be a little bit of a coin flip. I think USF may be a little overrated right now because of what they did to Boise State. It's one of those weird sort of A to B to C where I think Boise State was maybe overvalued. So therefore, USF's victory over Boise State makes them overvalued. But watching that game, I see a lot of talent on the field, and I'm seeing a lot of pieces finally start to come together for Alex Golesh. If they can put that together again this week against the University of Florida, who is chronically overrated, that would be absolutely huge, not just for their program, not just for the American Conference, but just for college football in general. As a resident of the state of Florida, I can tell you right now that between Miami, UCF, USF, FSU, and Florida, there's quite a bit of animus as to who is the big dog on the block. And if USF can knock off a ranked Florida in Gainesville, this will be truly a historic. They will hang plaques. They will hang plaques at USF if they can pull this game out. Other top games, we've got Army going to Kansas State. Based on last week's game against Tarleton, you would think Army is a shoo-in to lose this game. I wouldn't be so sure. I mentioned earlier that Army's major issues were stemming from their offensive line. Truthfully, if they can get those cleaned up, quite a bit of the issues against Tarleton State, they get resolved. Meanwhile, Kansas State is 1-1, having lost to Iowa State abroad in week 0 in Ireland, and then having to come from behind to beat the University of North Dakota. Now, University of North Dakota, another very strong FCS team. We just lost to a very strong FCS team. I don't want to throw stones, but I think Army might be able to use this as a bounce back, and they could maybe sneak off with a win. Call me crazy. After that, we've got Texas State going to UTSA. This is a big in-state hated rival. Texas State, they are jumping to the Pac-12 next year. They, much like every team going to the Pac-12, they're a little big for their britches. They think they're better than everybody else, that they're the big dog on the block. UTSA, coming off a loss at Texas A&M, they are very improved this year. They are expected to do good things. I think UTSA is going to pull this out. They're playing at the Alamo Dome. They have a fantastic record when they're at the Alamo Dome. As I said, high emotions, high pressure, big game, hated rival. I think UTSA rises to the occasion, and all of the Pac haters on Twitter get to celebrate as Texas State falls. And the last one I'm going to name is really out of left field, because I'll tell you what, 2 weeks ago, nobody would have said this. And that's Houston traveling to Rice. Now, as I mentioned, Rice went to Louisiana as an underdog, and they beat the Ragin' Cajuns 14-12 last week. I'm not saying that they're going to beat Houston. What I am saying is this might be a very interesting game to watch, because if Rice can pull this out, this would be a tremendous shift in the dynamic between the P4 and the G5 and what's going on internally within the American Conference. Rice could potentially shock the world here. I'm not saying that they will. All I'm saying is this is a game to keep your eyes on. In other news around the American this week, as I mentioned, Charlotte hosts UNC. This could be huge. One, Belichick might be starting 0-2. He might be doing it by losing to Charlotte, a team that's got no gravitas. It's got no weight in terms of being a powerhouse. But as I have said on this very show, a team that is up and coming. Navy's got a patty cake in they're playing UAB. Leave it to Navy with this soft schedule. They play VMI, they play UAB. They're afraid to play any real good teams. So what are you going to do there? University of North Texas, they are playing Western Michigan. This is an American MAC matchup. I think North Texas is probably going to win it. Western Michigan has been down in recent years. I think North Texas is going to do it. And then we've got some, expected FCS walkovers. Memphis is going to be playing Georgia State, Tulane against South Alabama, and Tulsa against New Mexico State. Now, I know that not all of those schools are actually FCS schools, but as an AC homer, as an American Conference homer, we basically consider those to be FCS. So those should be walkovers. But thank you so much. Thank God for football. Go Army, beat Navy.
Hey everybody, this is Jay with TGFF Game Day, giving you our Southern Conference look. And this week we're going to start it off with, of course, going to Tennessee Tech, a team that will be a part of the Southern Conference next year. They welcome in UT Chattanooga. UT Chattanooga, after a disappointing loss last week, goes into Tennessee Tech, and I think they get it done. They get the win and get back to 500. The next game we go to is Ferrum Panthers versus the VMI Cadets. Give me VMI getting their first win of the year over Ferrum. And this game will be close, looking at like a 24-21 game. The next game we want to talk about is Western Carolina going to Wake. I was at Wake last week and was able to see this team versus Kennesaw State. Western Carolina, disappointing game last week. Everybody's wanting to know what is up with Western Carolina, UT Chattanooga, Mercer. The Southern Conference took a huge hit last week. But give me Wake over Western Carolina this week. I just think Wake has too much for Western Carolina. I think Western Carolina plays a better game, but they will not be able to handle Wake Forest. The next game is a game that I'll be at, which is going to be Presbyterian at Furman. Presbyterian with an impressive win over last year's Southern Conference champion Mercer. And I tell you what, Presbyterian has a lot going on. They have a team that should be reckoned with. And Furman, of course, got a huge win over William and Mary last week, a game that I was at also last week. And I just want to say that I think this game, Furman gets the win. That's right. Give me Furman over Presbyterian. I think Trey Hendon will have a great game. And I think our defense with Blaylock and Stone King will definitely give Presbyterian headaches. And Furman will have its fifth 2-0 season to start. So, because usually they play an FBS team by now, but they won't be playing Clemson till in November. So give me Furman over Presbyterian. Next game is ETSU, who was the class of the field last week, takes on Tennessee. The 22-ranked Tennessee Volunteers welcome in East Tennessee State. Tennessee is going to be a little bit too much for East Tennessee State, but I think East Tennessee State does have a decent showing. But give me Tennessee in this game. I think the SEC team will just have way too much power for East Tennessee State, but they do have a good showing. Next week, a battle of 0 and 1. So somebody's going to come out with a 1, and we're talking about Citadel versus Samford. Samford last week had a very bad loss. We thought they was going to be better. Citadel, who I picked to upset North Dakota State, got shut out. But both these teams are looking for a rebound. But the thing I see right now is that Citadel, I think, will be coming out with a lot stronger want to get this win. Not saying that Samford won't, but I think Citadel goes into Samford and gets the win. The next game we talk about will be Richmond going into Wofford this coming Saturday night at 6 p.m., a game that our buddy Martin Livingston will be at. This game, I tell you, Richmond is a team to be reckoned with in the FCS, and I really think that they're going to give Wofford everything that they can handle. So give me Richmond over Wofford. I'd love to say Wofford in this game. I hope they do win, but I think Richmond's going to have just a little bit too much power in this game, and that's how that's going to work. So this week, give me UT Chattanooga, give me VMI, give me Wake Forest over Western Carolina, Furman over Pres, Tennessee over ETSU, Samford loses to Citadel in the upset of the week, and give me Richmond over Wofford. This has been Jay with TGF Game Day, brought to you by Arden's Burger and Grill in Central South Carolina.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Mark Livingston coming to you for TGFF Game Day and GreenvilleSportsMedia.com. This segment is brought to you by TrueVictory.com, so please go check them out. This is our weekly Big Ten coverage. I will go over everything from last week from the Big Ten and what to look for this weekend. Last weekend, I don't think we really learned a whole lot about the Big Ten. Yeah, Ohio State won their game against Texas. I don't know how impressive that was. Ohio State's defense was really, really good. Offensively, don't think they really put any fear in anybody just yet. Julian Sayon, still looks like he has some work to do. Jeremiah Smith, had a few drops. So, like I said, they won the game. They had the best competition. So, hats off to those guys. Penn State looked very, very impressive against Nevada, but once again, that is Nevada. So, I'm going to still hold out the jury on those guys as well. So this week, though, we do have a slate of some interesting games. First one I'm going to talk about is Illinois and Duke. Illinois comes in, they came in on 1-0. Duke, they coming in under Manny Diaz trying to establish themselves. One thing that they do pride themselves on is their defense in Duke. Right now, Illinois, they come in as the favorites. However, I'm going to go with the upset on this one. I think Duke's going to force a couple of turnovers and come out with a big win over Illinois Champaign. So I'm going to probably say Duke 21, Illinois 17 in that game. Oregon will be traveling to Oklahoma State this weekend. New quarterback Dante is going to be making his second start after a big win over Montana State. Should be a little bit of a test. I still like Oregon big in this game. Not super aware of what Oklahoma State has going on right now, but Mike Gundy doesn't seem to have the team that he normally would have. So I'm going to go big on this one. I'm going to put Oregon 42, Oklahoma State 21. The next game that we will go ahead and talk about is Iowa and Iowa State. Iowa State, rivalry game played early this season. Iowa State, they played their first game in Dublin, Ireland against Kansas State. Definitely, was a bit trying. They looked a little bit sluggish, but, first game of the season in a foreign country, I think that was set up to be a rough game. I'm going to go Iowa State on this one in a low-scoring game because you know how that Iowa defense is going to be stingy. But I think it's going to be a field goal to decide it. Give me 17-14 Iowa State. Now, the game of the week is going to be Michigan and Oklahoma. Now, this is going to be an interesting game right now. Michigan, Sharon Moore is going to be suspended again for this game. So they will be without their head coach. Bryce Underwood comes in after having a very, very good game last week, so he's going to be expected to come out and play big in this one, as well as Justice Haynes as well. Oklahoma, though, I think Oklahoma's a bit of a different team from last year. Brent Venables is going to be the one calling the defensive plays again. It's going to definitely be a tough atmosphere to play in. I'm going to go ahead and put Oklahoma in this one. Give me Oklahoma 24 and Michigan 21. All right, so that, like I said, there are going to be other games going on. Those are the ones that I pinpointed to talk about. But like I said, I'm still keeping my eyes out on other teams. Penn State has a very, very light schedule going into conference play. So, I won't really be talking about them too much probably until they get into conference play. But they do have, I think they're the most balanced team in the Big Ten. So, even though they don't really have any real tests right now, I still like the Penn State Nittany Lions to take the whole Big Ten. But that's going to remain to be seen. It will continue to unfold. So, like I said, check me out this Saturday. I will be on TGFF game day talking with Justin about this stuff as well. And like I said, keeping my weekly videos going, okay? Thank you, guys, and enjoy the football. Oh, yeah, tonight is the Eagles. Go Birds.
TGFF, pick up a football. Game day. 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 You have tuned in to another episode of Thank God for Football, brought to you by the Fanboys, powered by Greenville Sports Media.